Fellow Nigerians, from the first signs that coronavirus or COVID-19 was turning into an epidemic and was officially declared a worldwide emergency, the federal government started planning preventive, containment, and curative measures in the event the disease hits Nigeria. The whole instruments of government are now mobilized to confront what has now become both a health emergency and an economic crisis. Nigeria, unfortunately, confirmed its first case on 27 February 2020. Since then, we have seen the number of confirmed cases rise slowly. By the morning of March 29, 2020, the total confirmed cases within Nigeria has risen to 97. Regrettably, we also had our first fatality, a former employee of PPMC who died on 23 March 2020. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family in these very difficult times. We also pray for quick recovery for those infected and undergoing treatment. As of today, COVID-19 has no cure. Scientists around the world are working very hard to develop a vaccine. We are in touch with these institutions as they work towards a solution that will be certified by international and local medical authorities within the shortest possible time. For now, the best and most efficient way to avoid getting infected is through regular hygienic and sanitary practices, as well as social distancing. As individuals, we remain the greatest weapon to fight this pandemic. By washing our hands regularly with clean water and soap, disinfecting frequently used surfaces and areas, coughing into a tissue or elbow, and strictly adhering to infection prevention control measures in health facilities, we can contain this virus. Since the outbreak was reported in China, our government has been monitoring the situation closely and studying the various responses adopted by other countries. Indeed, the Director General of the Nigerian Center for Disease Control was one of the 10 global health leaders invited by the World Health Organization to visit China and understudy their response approach. I am personally very proud of Dr. Ihekweazu for doing this on behalf of all Nigerians. Since his return, the NCDC has been implementing numerous strategies and programs in Nigeria to ensure that the adverse impact of this virus on our country is minimized. We ask all Nigerians to support the work the Federal Ministry of Health and NCDC are doing, led by the Presidential Task Force. Although we have adopted strategies used globally, our implementation programs have been tailored to reflect our local realities. In Nigeria, we are taking a two-step approach. First, to protect the lives of our fellow Nigerians and residents living here, and second, to preserve the livelihoods of workers and business owners to ensure their families get through this very difficult time in dignity and with hope and peace of mind. To date, we have introduced healthcare measures, border security, fiscal and monetary policies in our response. We shall continue to do so as the situation unfolds. Some of these measures will surely cause major inconveniences to many citizens. But these are sacrifices we should all be willing and ready to make for the greater good of our country. In Nigeria's fight against COVID-19, there is no such thing as an overreaction or an underreaction. It is all about the right reaction by the right agencies and trained experts. Accordingly, as a government, we will continue to rely on guidance of our medical professionals and experts at the Ministry of Health, NCDC, and other relevant agencies through this difficult time. I therefore urge all students to adhere to their guidelines as they are released from time to time. As we are all aware, Lagos and Abuja have the majority of confirmed cases in Nigeria. Our focus, therefore, remains to urgently and drastically contain these cases and to support other states and regions in the best way we can. This is why we provided an initial intervention of 15 billion naira to support the national response as we fight to contain and control the spread. We also created a presidential task force to develop a workable national response strategy that is being reviewed on a daily basis as the requirements change. This strategy takes international best practices but adopts them to suit our unique local circumstances. Our goal is to ensure all states have the right support and manpower to respond immediately. So far in Lagos and Abuja, we have recruited hundreds of ad hoc staff to man all our call centers and support our tracing and testing efforts. I also requested through the Nigerian Governors Forum for all state governments to nominate doctors and nurses who will be trained by the NCDC and Lagos state government on tactical and operational response to the virus in case it spreads to other states. This training will also include medical representatives from our armed forces, paramilitary, and security and intelligence agencies. As a nation, our response must be guided, systematic, and professional. There is a need for consistency across the nation. All inconsistencies in policy guidelines between federal and state agencies will be eliminated. As I mentioned earlier, as at this morning, we had 97 confirmed cases. Majority of these are in Lagos and Abuja. All the confirmed cases are getting the necessary medical care. Our agencies are currently working hard to identify cases and people these patients have been in contact with. The few confirmed cases outside Lagos and Abuja are linked to persons who have traveled from these centers. We are therefore working to ensure such interstate and interstate movements are restricted to prevent further spread. Based on the advice of the Federal Ministry of Health and the NCDC, I am directing the cessation of all movements in Lagos and the FCT for an initial period of 14 days with effect from 11 p.m. on Monday, 30th March 2020. This restriction will also apply to Ogun State due to its close proximity to Lagos and the high traffic between the two states. All citizens in these areas are to stay in their homes. Travel to or from other states should be postponed. All businesses and offices within these locations should be fully closed during this period. The governors of Lagos and Ogun states, as well as the minister of the FCT, have been notified. Furthermore, heads of security and intelligence agencies have also been briefed. We will use this containment period to identify, trace, and isolate all individuals that have come into contact with confirmed cases. We will ensure the treatment of confirmed cases while restricting further spread to other states. This order does not apply to hospitals and all related medical establishments, as well as organizations in healthcare-related manufacturing and distribution. Furthermore, commercial establishments such as A, food processing, distribution and retail companies, B, petroleum distribution and retail entities, C, power generation, transmission and distribution companies, and D, private security companies are also exempted. Although these establishments are exempted, access will be restricted and monitored. Workers in telecommunication companies, broadcasters, print and electronic media staff who can prove they are unable to work from home are also exempted. All seaports in Lagos shall remain operational in accordance with the guidelines I issued earlier. Vehicles and drivers conveying essential cargoes from these ports to other ports of the country will be screened thoroughly before departure by the Ports Health Authority. Furthermore, all vehicles conveying food and other essential humanitarian items into these locations from other parts of the country will also be screened thoroughly before they are allowed to enter these restricted areas. Accordingly, the Honorable Minister of Health is hereby directed to redeploy all Port Health Authority employees previously stationed in Lagos and Abuja airports to key roads that serve as entry and exit points to these restricted zones. Movements of all passenger aircraft, both commercial and private jets, are hereby suspended. Special permits will be issued on a needs basis. We are fully aware that such measures will cause much hardship and inconvenience to many citizens, but this is a matter of life and death. If we look at the dreadful daily toll of deaths in Italy, France, and Spain. However, we must all see this as our national and patriotic duty to control and contain the spread of this virus. I will therefore ask all of us affected by this order to put aside our personal comfort to safeguard ourselves and fellow human beings. This common enemy can only be controlled if we all come together and obey scientific and medical advice. As we remain ready to enforce these measures, we should see this as our individual contribution in the war against COVID-19. Many other countries have taken far stricter measures in a bid to control the spread of the virus with positive results. For residents of satellite and commuter towns and communities around Lagos and Abuja, whose livelihoods will surely be affected by some of these restrictive measures, we shall deploy relief materials to ease their pains in the coming weeks. Furthermore, although schools are closed, I have instructed the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management, and Social Development to work with state governments in developing a strategy on how to sustain the school feeding program during this period without compromising our social distancing policies. The Minister will be contacting the affected states and agree on detailed next steps. Furthermore, I have directed that a 3-month repayment moratorium for all trader money, market money, and farmer money loans be implemented with immediate effect. I have also directed that a similar moratorium be given to all federal government-funded loans issued by the Bank of Industry, Bank of Agriculture, and the Nigerian Export-Import Bank. For on-lending facilities, using capital from international and multilateral development partners, I have directed our development financial institutions to engage these development partners and negotiate concessions to ease the pains of the borrowers. For the most vulnerable in our society, I have directed that the conditional cash transfers for the next 2 months be paid immediately. Our internally displaced persons will also receive 2 months of food rations in the coming weeks. We also call on all Nigerians to take personal responsibility to support those who are vulnerable within their communities, helping them with whatever they may need. As we all pray for the best possible outcome, we shall continue planning for all eventualities. This is why I directed that all federal government stadia, pilgrims camps, and other facilities be converted to isolation centers and makeshift hospitals. My fellow Nigerians, as a government, we will avail all necessary resources to support the response and recovery. We remain committed to do whatever it takes to confront COVID-19 in our country. We are very grateful to see the emerging support of the private sector and individuals to the response, as well as our development partners. At this point, I will ask that all contributions and donations be coordinated and centralized to ensure efficient and impactful spending. The Presidential Task Force remains a central coordinating body on the COVID-19 response. I want to assure you all that government ministries, departments, and agencies with a role to play in the outbreak response are working hard to bring this virus under control. Every nation in the world is challenged at this time, but we have seen countries where citizens have come together to reduce the spread of the virus. I will therefore implore you again to strictly comply with the guidelines issued and also do your bit to support government and the most vulnerable in our communities. I will take this opportunity to thank all our public health workforce, healthcare workers, port health authorities, and other essential staff on the front lines of the response for their dedication and commitment. You are true heroes. I thank you all for listening. May God continue to bless and protect us all. citizens in these areas are to stay in their homes. Travel to or from other states should be postponed.
President Buhari orders 2-week lockdown of Abuja, Lagos and Ogun to contain coronavirus.
COVID-19 cases in Nigeria rise to 111.
Inspector General of Police alerts Nigerians of growing cyber crimes.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss the presidential broadcast on coronavirus plus situational reports from some states.
Effective from 11 p.m., that is 1 hour to midnight today, there shall be no movement in Abuja, Lagos and Ogun states in a bid to contain the spread of the coronavirus in Nigeria. This is an express directive from President Muhammadu Buhari in a nationwide broadcast to the nation yesterday, with a repeat broadcast some moments ago.
Now, that's right, Kyria. Now, a drastic situation, it is said, requires drastic measures. And that's what the president has just done. President Buhari said his directive was based on the advice of the Federal Ministry of Health and the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, considering that the majority of the 111 cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria are in Lagos and Abuja. Apparently, Ogun State has been included in the embargo on movements due to the state's proximity to Lagos.
Of course, Kingsley, President Buhari in his address noted that the governors of Lagos and Ogun states, as well as the minister of the FCT, have been duly notified to enforce the restriction of movements, which implies that all citizens in these areas are to stay in their homes. Travel to or from other states must be postponed, and all businesses and offices within these locations should be fully closed during the 2-week period, which of course might be extended as the president deems necessary.
That's right, Kyrian. And according to the president, the essence of the lockdown of Abuja, Lagos and Ogun states is to use the 2-week period to identify, trace and isolate all individuals that have come into contact with confirmed cases and ensure the treatment of those confirmed cases while restricting further spread to other states.
And the president was quick to add that this movement restriction order in the FCT, Lagos and Ogun states does not apply to hospitals and medical establishments in the healthcare sector involved in manufacturing and distribution of goods and services. Also exempted from the movement restriction are commercial establishments such as food processing, distribution and retail companies, petroleum distribution and retail entities, power generation, transmission and distribution companies, and of course private security companies.
Now, also exempted are workers in the telecommunications sector, broadcasters, print and electronic media staff who, according to the president, can prove that they are unable to work from home. And of course, everyone on the exemption list will still be subject to close monitoring and restriction of access where necessary.
Yes, indeed, Kingsley. The president equally announced palliatives to cushion the effect of total or partial lockdown in parts of the country as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, the president directed that the conditional cash transfers for the next 2 months be paid immediately to the most vulnerable in society, captured under the social investment program, just as internally displaced persons will also receive 2 months of food rations in the coming weeks.
That's right. Now, Nigerians who were loaned monies under the various social investment programs, such as trader money, market money, and farmer money, are to enjoy a 3-month repayment moratorium with immediate effect, according to the president. And a similar moratorium will also apply to all federal government-funded loans issued by the Bank of Industry, Bank of Agriculture, as well as the Nigeria Export and Import Bank.
Besides these measures by the federal government to contain COVID-19, state governments have also been announcing total or partial lockdown of the territories to contain the deadly coronavirus, in addition to suspension of public gatherings, especially in places of worship.
Now, these measures notwithstanding, Kirian, the cases of COVID-19 seem to be on the rise in the country at the moment, with some high-profile persons testing positive to the virus. But Nigerians are hoping against an exponential explosion in the country.
We're indeed praying for that, Kinsley, because it's indeed ravaging other parts of the world, and nobody wants to see what is happening in Spain, France, Italy, or even America to happen here.
That's right. As of last night, we had figures of about 2,400 at least who had died in the U.S. and worldwide over 700,000 persons have been infected with the virus.
And of course, the persons in the front line are also lacking some equipment required to protect themselves.
That's right.
Well, now, so how effective are the federal and state measures so far here in Nigeria? To what extent will the lockdown of the economic and political capitals of the country contain the spread of coronavirus? And what more measures are required? We will have our guests respond to these questions and more on the program today. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria on the NTA. My name is Kirian Umayo.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Kirian to also welcome you to the program, reaching you as always live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We're Africa's largest public broadcaster, and we are operating from our Abuja headquarters studios. But of course, we have our regular companion segments, some of which we might not be able to take on account of the time already that we have spent in rebroadcasting the President's address last night. Kirian, I think that we should also make this point, because immediately after the President's broadcast last night, there's a lot of cynicism that is sweeping through the country. Some persons were claiming, oh, the President's address was recorded. There's nothing unusual about having it. Actually, a presidential address is pre-recorded.
You know, one thing I don't like about Nigerians is the negative thoughts about every situation. Whenever something comes up, there's this negativity that takes the air. And even persons who have been to school don't really try to digest certain information before they believe in it.
The president wasn't addressing a press conference.
Exactly.
So the president wasn't at a live function. So it was a recorded broadcast. And the broadcast, of course, came on at 7 p.m. last night, and we just had a repeat just about 30 minutes or so ago. So the president broadcast usually is pre-recorded, not just for President Muhammadu Buhari, but that's the way it's been for virtually all times. All right, so we have a package for you. We shall be discussing the president's broadcasts going forward, and as well as situation reports from the states. In the meantime, let's join our colleague Nolile Belame with the updates of the morning news. Good morning, Nolile.
Good morning, Kinsley and Kieran. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the morning news. Nigeria is exploring all avenues to contain the coronavirus pandemic. As at Sunday, March 29, 2020, a total of 111 cases have been confirmed positive by the NCDC following 14 new cases reported in Nigeria, 9 in Lagos and 5 in the FCT. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, in its official Twitter handle, confirmed these cases of COVID-19 reported in Nigeria with 1 fatality. Chief of Staff to President Muhammadu Buhari, Abba Kyari, has revealed he will be going to Lagos for additional tests and observation after testing positive for coronavirus. In a statement, Abba Kyari says he has followed all the protocols of self-isolation and quarantine. He adds that he has not experienced high fever or other symptoms associated with this new virus and has been working from home. Kyari further reiterated his commitment towards serving the president and people of Nigeria. He assures all that President Buhari will do whatever it takes to protect the health and safety of Nigerians to get the country back on its feet as soon as possible. The Chief Medical Director of the University College Hospital UCH Ibadan, Professor J.C. Otegbayo, has tested positive for COVID-19. In a statement by the CMD, he and others were exposed to the virus during a 12-man quarterly meeting when one member presented with symptoms of COVID-19. A subsequent test confirmed his infection and he has since gone into isolation. Those he had contact with are also in isolation. Similarly, the provost and deputy provost of the University of Ibadan College of Medicine, Professor Ezekiel Olakbade Olaokpa and Professor Obafunke Denloe have tested positive for the coronavirus. They have all gone into isolation. The medical experts urged all Nigerians to follow NCDC guidelines and self-isolate if exposed. The Comptroller General of Nigeria Immigration Service, Mohammed Babandede, has equally tested positive to COVID-19. A statement by Nigeria Immigration Services, PRO, indicates that the CGI returned from an official trip to the United Kingdom and promptly went into self-isolation and requested to be tested in line with the advisory of health authorities. The result of the test came out positive in spite of his stable condition. In compliance with the FCT administration's advisory on religious gathering, many churches have suspended major Sunday worship services which usually attract thousands of worshippers. There were, however, some exceptions involving defaulters who had a run-in with the law.
Even the mosques, I hear that mosques are also closed. So I don't think it's a problem for us to comply with the government requirements.
And we encourage them to continue to hold house fellowships until the situation improves.
We have done what is not appropriate. As we have often tell people, and we re-emphasize it over and over again, on Fridays we shut down some mosques.
The Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning has dissociated itself from a purported letter circulating on social media calling for donations for the fight against COVID-19 in Nigeria. A statement signed by Special Advisor Media and Communications to the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Yunus Atanko Abdullahi, says the activities of fraudsters impersonating the ministry is an attempt to defraud unsuspecting members of the public. The purported letter, which mentioned names of some notable Nigerians, is appealing to Nigerians to give to aid the fight against COVID-19, is fake and a scam. The ministry hereby admonishes Nigerians to disregard the letter. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Jeffrey Onyama, has dispelled a fabricated and malicious report circulating in the media alleging that the two claimed cases of COVID-19 recently reported in Enugu State are the minister and his personal assistant. A statement by the Special Advisor to the Minister on Media, Sarah Sanders, says the minister and his aide were in Abuja at all the material times. Furthermore, the minister is a member of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 and all the members were recently tested and all found to be negative. To curb this kind of criminal behavior, the matter has been brought to the attention of the law enforcement agencies for investigation, and severe sanctions will be meted to the perpetrators as deterrents for the future. The Inspector General of Police, IGP Mohammed Adamu, has enjoined members of the public to be wary of criminal elements who might explore the emergency situation created by the coronavirus pandemic to increase their criminal activities. A statement by the Force Public Relations Officer DCP Frank Mba says the IGP's advice is informed by credible intelligence from Interpol, which suggests that fraudsters are already setting up websites, social media accounts and emails claiming to sell COVID-19 medical products while using the name of prominent companies to ask victims to pay via bank transfer. The police therefore advised Nigerians to avoid opening suspicious emails, ensure they back up and use strong passwords for their social media accounts. They should also ignore suspicious telephone calls from people pretending to be in need of cash to treat their purported COVID-19 infection and report such activities to the police. That's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Kiran after this break. I am Nolene Ebel Ame.
I had invited the boss for lunch.
Okay.
Then I get called to handle some emergency. Then my plan B, the caterer, gets hopelessly stuck somewhere.
What?
Then I call hubby, and he says,
What are we going to do?
Relax, we got this.
No, we don't.
now it's up to me and him to save the day.
Are you okay?
With help from something special, the new Ninja pot seasoning from Maggi, specially made from natural stockfish, smoked fish, crayfish, and other ingredients to give your soups and pottages that Nigerian bottom pot taste.
You need to tell me how you got that bottom pot taste.
And then later she
Come
says,
see me Monday morning. Let's talk about the new branch we're opening.
just then my plan B shows up. And just when I thought the drama was over,
My sister, let's go to business.
Delicious bottom pot, yeah.
Not so fast. Look, I'm tired. I want to check out of this country for greener pastures.
Just calm down for a moment. Please sit down.
Do you have a job where you're going to? No, but someone is arranging,
Listen, Alinko. Checking out of this country without proper planning means one thing. Unimaginable begin. You know, I've been in the diaspora, but legitimately doing great things at home and abroad. As I've been saying, without the proper footing abroad, the risk is not worth it. Listen, Alinko, it's better to be home than be trapped abroad or even end up in prison.
Let's go, guys.
Babe,
Yeah.
would you please turn on your hotspot?
Okay, there you go. My lady, play this ball. Hey, hold this guy down.
Password, please.
0808.
Babe, you have a message.
From who? Read it out now. Read it out to my ears.
Free your mind with Airtel Smart Talk and enjoy calls to all networks at a flat rate of 11 kobo per second. Dial *315# to join.
Fine girl. Can I have your phone, man?
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Coronavirus is real. Steps to avoid this pandemic. Wash your hands regularly or sanitize your hands. Keep social and physical distancing. Avoid crowded places. Stay at home unless absolutely necessary. Don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth if your hands are not clean. Avoid the spread of coronavirus. Coronavirus is real.
All right, you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria. And next for us here now is a review of some national dailies.
We'll take a look at the front page of the Leadership newspaper and the lead story and indeed other stories virtually on the front page on COVID-19. So lead story says with a kicker, coronavirus, President Muhammadu Buhari locks down Abuja, Lagos and Ogun. Details on page 4, but you have a number of riders to that very headline. Says it's a matter of life and death. Exempts telecoms, media, health, security, electricity workers from 14-day shutdown. Approves 2 months conditional cash transfer for vulnerable Nigerians. Suspends all flight operations. And residents of satellite towns to get relief materials. Israel evacuates 274 nationals from Nigeria. And confirmed cases in Nigeria now 111. And below that you have the headline, we have enough fuel for 60 days, says NNPC. Enhanced medical equipment over to Uni Abuja Hospital. Now below the nameplate, and that's to say above the late story, it says Zenith, that's Zenith Bank, commits 23 billion naira, Keystone 1 billion naira, Tinubu 200 million naira to combat COVID-19. And right at the foot of the front page itself says Abba Kyari confirms testing positive for COVID-19. Troops kill bandits and rescue kidnapped victims in Zamfara. That's page 10. And NSCDC, that's Civil Defense, alerts Nigerians on new antics of car thieves. And NIMASA bans foreign vessels without terminal screening facilities. Details on page 2. Kieran.
All right, the next paper for review this morning is Al Jazeera. The lead story is below the nameplate. COVID-19, people living with disabilities cry out. Has a rider to that. The federal government sensitization not encouraging. That's according to President Albino Foundation. The story is on page 11. 25 top politicians, civil servants on watch list. It's on page 13. Now, fuel scarcity looms as long queues resurface in Abuja. You can get that story on page 2. Lagos task force vandalized stalls to enforce lockdown. That story is on page 6. Now, despite 43.5 billion allocation, NAJCOMSAT remains unsuccessful. The story is captured on page 15. Now, crisis rocks PDP as 2 ex-ministers, ex-speaker fired. The details on page 31. And at the bottom of Al Jazeera, we have other stories. COVID-19, public hospitals fail to comply. That's on page 6. Find out why they failed to comply. Moribund refineries gulped 218.2 billion naira in 2019, posted 149.2 billion loss. It's on page 26. Again, COVID-19, Abuja resident narrates difficulty in getting tested. Page 8 is where you get the story. The new Army Hospital commences clinical services. That's according to the CMD of the hospital. The story is on page 24 of Al Jazeera, Nigeria.
Okay, Kieran, basically, I mean, most of the stories are on COVID-19, as you said, and related issues. But I was just wondering, that story on the front page of Al Jazeera saying fuel queues in Abuja. Well, where are the queues? I mean, I bought fuel last night. In the central area, I wasn't on any queue.
Yeah, so
I don't know.
Maybe
we know that there were some delays in some fuel stations complying with the slash in the pump price of PMS.
But that has been adjusted.
It's been adjusted,
last week, and everybody has been buying fuel without any disruptions. Well, Kingsley, I don't think we have any much to review here this morning.
Yes, that's right.
Because all mainly on COVID-19, which is our topic this morning.
For conversation, right. Absolutely. Yeah. But, there's one story that occurred over the weekend. I mean, you don't have that on the front pages. I think the stories have been buried far inside. It was the explosion in Ondo State. There was a truck that was conveying some explosives. Unfortunately, something just went wrong, and you had this massive explosion leading to a lot of destruction. The police authorities, of course, have dispelled any insinuation that it was a terror attack and saying that there were explosives being conveyed to a quarry. But unfortunately, yes.
I think I have a perspective to that, because the staff of NASDA, that's the National Agency for Space Research and Development, did come up to say that it could be an asteroid, that hit Nigeria, because of course it's been expected in the last 2 weeks that there's an asteroid that they detached and it's coming down. And Nigeria is one of the countries that said it might, drop down. So there are also investigating there, and the location at the moment they're trying to do some excavation to know that they can find rocks that are possibly asteroids, that came from the orbit. That's another perspective to that story.
That's right. I mean, I read that perspective myself, and I was wondering, but the police authorities were...
until the excavation is done, they can prove anybody wrong.
Precisely what's wrong. I mean, the vehicle were conveying the explosive just implode. That's the point. Or was it struck by any other external object or otherwise? I think that's another sad event, because you recall we've discussed disaster management and all kinds of things. And if you are conveying such incendiary materials, what precautions ordinarily should you take? The police have their own explosives and ordnance department, and apparently they were not involved in this. So
would such thing be loaded without the consent of the police in the first place? For guidance, because it's an explosion, it's an explosive, right?
The police
it's
said,
an IED.
Yeah, the police said, no, it wasn't an IED. An IED.
That's the man had tried to explain it, because he used to blow the rocks. When you're doing a quarrying.
Yes. But I mean, in Abuja, in and around Abuja here, I mean, you've seen a lot of rock splitting going on, by the construction companies. That's part of what they use, as part of their devices. But these are controlled materials, and there are strict rules, for either being in the possession of them or conveying them. The police seem to be saying that they were not put on notice in terms of the conveyance, and therefore appropriate measures that they should have taken. But we do hope that they follow up on that, and where there was certain negligence, let the law take its course. All right, so that does it for our newspaper review segment. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll get ahead with our discussion.
When we have love, we'll be able to unite, irrespective of tribe, religion, and culture. So we keep preaching on love. That is the only binding force. Let us love ourselves, irrespective of where the person comes from.
You are about to witness the commencement of the most stimulating and compelling contest on television. This contest is only for the strong, the intelligent, and the talented. Get ready for the Unity Talent reality TV show. Coming soon.
Before now, no visual impaired had graduated with a first class here. And most times, it's not because they are not that intelligent or hardworking, it's just because they lack basic amenities of studying. Being visually impaired, for every effort a sighted person puts in, you have to put at least double of it.
The coronavirus, also known as COVID-19, has been declared by the World Health Organization as a global pandemic. While clinical trials are ongoing for a vaccine and a possible cure, there is no known treatment for the coronavirus. Nigeria has recorded some of these cases, and people are advised to take these preventive measures to keep themselves safe and contain the further spread of the virus. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water, or use hand sanitizers all the time. Maintain social distancing. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Practice respiratory hygiene. If you have fever, cough, and difficulty breathing, seek medical care early. Do not panic. Stop the spread of unconfirmed news. Follow the official government news outlets and report all cases immediately. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
We're glad to know that you're still with us this morning on the show. And our conversation on COVID-19 will focus on the presidential address and analysis of measures by state government. To set the tone for the program, here is Aisha Obale with a background.
in these areas are to stay in their homes. Travel to or from other states should be postponed. All businesses and offices within these locations should be fully closed during this period. We will use this containment period to identify, trace, and isolate all individuals that have come into contact with confirmed cases. We will ensure the treatment of confirmed cases while restricting further spread to other states.
The much expected presidential address by President Muhammadu Buhari came with tough measures and palliatives. The president noted that the whole instruments of government are now being mobilized to confront COVID-19, which has now become both a health emergency and economic crisis. While the federal government is in touch with global institutions working hard to develop a vaccine for COVID-19, President Buhari did not mince words when he said for now, the best and most efficient way to avoid getting infected is through regular hygienic, good sanitary practices, as well as social distancing. Besides the measures by the federal government, states are also taking their own measures. For instance, the Kogi state government has since announced a total lockdown of interstate borders with no movement by sea or road. In Kaduna, the 24-hour curfew imposed on the state, which already has taken effect with human and vehicular movement halted to contain the spread of COVID-19. Lagos, which has been in partial lockdown, will from today observe a total lockdown. Although no coronavirus case has been reported in Borno State, the state government has set up a high-powered committee on containment and response to any possible outbreak of the pandemic in the state. In Enugu, the State University Teaching Hospital has been designated to be the isolation center for patients with suspected cases of coronavirus and other infectious diseases. The Kano State government, on its part, has ordered the immediate closure of both land and air borders, which took effect from Friday, 27th March, to avoid interstate spread of COVID. Many other state governments have announced various containment measures, including those that are yet to record cases. How effective are these measures so far? Are these measures likely to contain further spread of COVID-19? What more measures are required? These and more issues will engage guests on Good Morning Nigeria shortly.
Many thanks, Aisha Obale, for that background. Joining us now to discuss this issue, as well as the situation reports from the states, we have Dr. Mohammed Kawu, who is the Acting Secretary of Health and Human Services, Secretariat of the Federal Capital Territory. It's the equivalent of an Acting Commissioner of Health in the state, because the FCT uses the designation of secretary, while the ministries are referred to as secretariats, except that at the state level you hardly ever find an acting commissioner. Regardless, Dr. Mohammed Kawu, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Thank you. I'm most welcome.
Also here with us in the studios, regular public affairs analyst Jide Ojo. Jide, pleasure to have you with us on
Thanks
the program.
for having me. Happy man.
And joining us from our Kano studio is the Deputy Governor of Kano State, Nasir Yusuf Gauna. Sir, you're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigeria. Thank you. Good morning, viewers.
Via Skype from Lagos, Dr. Adesola Olaneko, lecturer and researcher, Department of Medical Laboratory Science, College of Medicine, University of Lagos, and volunteer during 2014 Ebola outbreak. She is also a specialist in microbiology and molecular biology. Madam, we are glad to have you this morning on the show.
Yeah, good morning, Nigerians.
All right, once again, I'd like to have you join us on this conversation. Let's begin with His Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Kano State, Nasir Yusuf Gauna. Your Excellency, of course, you listened to the President broadcast last night with a repeat 7 o'clock this morning on our program. Could you give us a sense of your takeaway as this relates to the states, as indicated by the President in his address?
Yes, I think from what Mr. President said, Here in Kano, we have already taken measures similar to that. That is the aspect of setting a committee, the task force, which I'm heading the task force on the occurrence of this COVID-19. And then measures has been taken, like it has been aired on the news since 27th of this month precisely, by 12 midnight, all state our borders with other states has been locked down, and we have created a lot of sensitization programs and then preparedness. That is by setting up isolation centers. At the moment, we have about 3 isolation centers. And then we have the Sani Abacha Stadium, which yesterday we received an offer from Alhaji Aliko Dangote to come and set up an emergency isolation center, which is going to be a 600 bedded capacity. And we have met with the clerics, that is the ulamas in the state, and the chairman of Khan and his management on issues how we can be able to sensitize the public on this pandemic. And we are receiving a lot of cooperation. We have done a lot of fumigations in the markets, and then we are looking at possible ways of how, if it continues to occur, because we have not received any positive result. In Kano, we have sent at the moment 20 tests. To Abuja, we have received 15 as at today. They are all negative. We're waiting for the remaining 5. But the people being aware that needed be, all these places that we have mentioned, the markets, the mosque, and the worship centers can be closed. And we are just praying that it doesn't happen so, and it will not reach that stage, and hoping that we will be able to contain it from other parts of the country. Because as it continues growing now, we have to be very wary of what is happening in other states, because as we can see internationally, it is very scary. I have seen reports from different parts of the world, and that scares me, where you find out countries that did not suffer, or that suffered very well will tell you that we started like this, and then lack of compliance make us to reach the stage we are. And then you find them setting isolation centers that are very gigantic, very big, and all that one in a negative expectation of what is going to happen. So it scares me. And then the aspect of manpower is another thing that is very, very important, because when we sat down at the committee level, from the professionals that are in my committee, what I asked them was, how ready are we in terms of manpower? If we have the equipment and we have the medical supplies, then what about the manpower? And it is scary to know that the manpower that will handle this is not as adequate as it is. So we have to train. So right now, we are undertaking a lot of training of some of our health personnel to be ready for whatever occurrence that we may register, which we are not hoping.
All right, Your Excellency, let's remain with you for a while for further explanations from you. You talked about the fact that the government has met with the clerics, which is very important because last Friday we heard that there were protests in Katsina State with respect to closing down of mosques. Kano is actually one of the states in Nigeria with a large population. I think it's number one, as the case maybe, in terms of population. So what mechanisms have been put in place, in terms of controlling such huge crowd, in a lockdown situation? Are you prepared, to see that the Kano, people resident in Kano will adhere strictly to the lockdown measures if that gets to Kano?
Yes, we are ready because, like I've told you, like I've said, we have met with the clerics, and when it comes to the aspect of prayers and places of worships and gatherings, we are able to sensitize the public on that, and that measures are being taken in those public places to be sure that strict compliance to the social distancing is being applied. And if possible, the clerics, we have agreed with them, the ulamas, that if it is necessary, we will close down the worship centers, and they have all agreed that yes, when it comes to that, we can do that. And at the moment, the state has set up the fundraising committee, and this is why we do that is because majority of the population are vulnerable in terms of what to eat on daily basis. People have to go out to look for that. So what we are doing is while the government is trying its best to take care of the technical aspects and the medical supplies and equipments, this committee, when we raise funds, will be able to cater for those people that when it becomes necessary have to stay at home, not to move, because hunger is another thing. If you ask the people to stay at home, you have to make sure that at least the minimum provision for them to eat is being provided. So the state is doing its best to see how we can provide that, and then the state will continue with the technical aspect that is in providing medical supplies and technical support.
All right, thank you very much, Deputy Governor of Kano State. We're going to pause you in the meantime and return to you later on in the course of the conversation. Let's come to our two guests here in the Abuja studios. First, Dr. Mohammed Kawu, Acting Secretary of Health of the Federal Capital Territory. The FCT trails Lagos, distant second in terms of the number of positive cases already identified in the country. But how does the President broadcast, as well as the issues identified in the broadcast, resonate with the FCT altogether relating to the measures that have been taken and that will be taken in the course of the 14-day lockdown?
Yeah, thank you very much. We are so happy with the presidential broadcast. That has helped FCT tremendously because, as you said, FCT is trailing Lagos with number. So unlike Kano, we already have the burden. So the Minister of FCT had already set a ministerial advisory committee on COVID-2019, chaired by the former Minister of FCT, Dr. Umaru Modibo. And there are so many professionals and highly influential Nigerians in that committee, and the committees have been broken into subcommittees. There is medical subcommittee headed by professionals. There is communication and strategy committee. There is logistics subcommittee, and there is sensitization and mobilization committee. So this committee has been interacting with FCT medical team. You will recall we had also activated our EOC, Emergency Operation Committee, and it has been working. As we had this morning in the news, we already have about 300 3 tested cases. Out of that, 21 are positive. Unfortunately, we lost 1. We have treatment center at Gwagwalada. This pandemic, there is no state and federal. We are working in FCT as Nigeria. Now, the first activated treatment center is at University of Gwagwalada, where we have a 40-bedded center with ICU. So that center is active, and we already have patients being managed there. And the CMD of Gwagwalada was very proactive. He had sent a team to Lagos to co-manage cases in Lagos. You know, Lagos started since February. We got our first case 20th of March. So they had gone there, they studied Lagos, they worked with Lagos and co-managed. So they came back and started managing. So we don't have issues with that. And we have been continuously training health workers. Car Hospital will be on board any moment soon. It's a completed hospital, just to fix bed and do some rearrangements. It's ongoing. There is a facility at Idu train station. It's a big facility, 5-story building. We have inspected it, and CC has promised to fix it for us. We're going to have about 200 to 300 beds there. There is a small facility at Zuba that is already been fixed. We're going to have about 20-30 beds. We are also considering using Asokor Hospital to also combine completely into coronavirus COVID-19 management and center, an isolation center. We have gotten reasonable amount of PPEs and other commodities. We have already given some suppliers to suppliers. Federal Ministry of Health called me yesterday that they got some support from Chinese businessman. So FCT has a share that we will go and collect. So we are ready. We are good to go. The only little snag we have is that there are some social media news that is going around, which is not interesting and which is not good. Somebody posted that some health workers have been diagnosed. Not that health workers cannot contract this disease. Presidents have contracted this disease. Governors have contracted this disease. But as of today in FCT, there is no trained doctor, nurse, or pharmacist that has been confirmed. I liaise with Nigerian Medical Association, FCT, the Nigerian nurses, and none of their members is. I mean, this kind of news will discourage some staff and some health workers from participating. There was a case in Gwarimpa Hospital that was suspicious. We promptly went in, took the sample, and the result was negative. So this is what I will appeal to our colleagues. This is pandemic. Everybody must be on board. It's not an issue of FCT Health or FCT Minister or anybody. If you work in media, whatever, if you hear some news, you verify from us. You can even verify from the unions if you think government will not give you correct information. So this is the appeal I'm going to make, so that we don't discourage the frontline staff, nurses, doctors. By the time you send news item that some doctors, nurses have been infected, that is sending some wrong signal. So I will appeal to that. Generally speaking, FCT is ready.
Okay, thank you. You made one valid point with respect to conversion of certain facilities into would-be isolation centers if anything happens. Because across the globe, conference centers are being converted across the globe. Where of course hospitals cannot contain the number of people that are. We are not hoping that it will get to that level actually, but when it happens, be prepared to convert many more, because when you say 130 beds, 20 beds, these are small, right? But
No, I need to explain.
Thank you. No, we'll come back to you on that.
All
We'll
right.
come back to you on that. But let's move forward. Gideon, let's bring you in here on the palliative aspect of the president's broadcast, which of course will be targeting a certain class of Nigerians. He talked about the most vulnerable. How would you digest whatever process that could be put in place to ensure that this class of Nigerians are going to receive whatever palliative that has been packaged, especially in the three states, the 2 states and Abuja, that will start experiencing total lockdown from tomorrow?
For me, first I want to commend Mr. President for coming out to speak with us after so much pressure. His speech was very well articulated. He told us what the government has been able to do and what his presidency is intending to do in the coming days and weeks. Yes, there is going to be total lockdown from 11 p.m. today. That's not altogether unexpected, given the fact that the number keep increasing. As at the time he gave his speech yesterday, we had 97. By this morning, we were already up to 111. So, in terms of the palliatives, yes, it's not sufficient, but it's a good step in the right direction. Why did I say it's not sufficient? Yes, you look at the vulnerable, it was not definitive in terms of how many. He just said IDPs will get 2 months' ration of food. We do not have the statistics how many of the people in the IDPs will get that. People in community, satellite states, satellite communities to Abuja in coming weeks. We do not know exactly when this will take off. There is also the aspect of the fact that the homegrown school feeding program will still be activated. That gives me source for worry, because I don't think this is the time to allow children to come to school because they want to get food, knowing full well how rowdy children can be, and the schools have been shut down. So for me, I have an exception to that issue of homegrown school feeding program at this point. However, there is also another category of people I thought should have been included, which is the persons with disability community, which significantly will be affected by this lockdown. There was no mention of them. While the president mentioned IDPs, mentioned people who are on trader money, farmer money, and all of that, that they are going to get moratorium on repayment of whatever the loan they are owing government, at least 3 months moratorium. All of these are welcome development, so that the burden is not on them how to repay their loan, because if they default, definitely that compound interest can kick in. So the president has allayed fear that, okay, all of you that are owing, your debt will be rescheduled, and then there will be full supply to people who are vulnerable. But in terms, let's take Lagos for example. Lagos was very definitive. We are going to provide food for 200,000 households. And I would have expected that statistics to come out. Having said all of that, I think it's high time. First, I want to commend the organized private sector that has also come out very strongly to support government. The other day, the GMD of NNPC told us about 11 billion that NNPC and its joint venture partners like Chevron, ExxonMobil, and the rest of them have put together. That's a princely sum. We also have heard from the Deputy Governor, His Excellency Deputy Governor of Kano State, that apart from the billions that have been donated by Alhaji Dangote, he has also promised to convert our Sani Abacha Stadium in Kano to a 600-bed emergency facility, all by himself. That's very commendable. And this is where worship, our religious institutions need to come up. We cannot wait on government to do this supporting the vulnerable and all. If you can take care of your church members at this point in time, provide them food, provide them water. If you can take care of your members of NASFAT or members of your mosque, you are doing something. You are not going to be waiting for government. And if you are a community leader, you are representatives of the people in the parliament, this is the time to stand out and be counted. I expect our honorables from the State House of Assembly to House of Reps to Senate to start mobilizing resources to support their constituents. Is it water supply you can give them? We are being asked to wash our hands regularly with soap for some 20 seconds. You know the volume of water you will need to be able to do that. And we know the rainy season hasn't yet kicked in this part of the country. So people need a lot of water to be, and if you know the trajectory of many communities that have to travel long distance, 5 kilometers to source for stream water to be able to cook and take their bath, then you know that washing hands with soap, with water at this point will be a luxury. So I expect the the parliamentarians at various levels to come out with their own support. If it's 2 water tankers, you can supply your constituents. If it's food supply, you can use, buy from the market and distribute to your constituents. This will go a long way to help whatever government is doing, however inadequate that could be.
All right, Jide Ojo, thank you very much there for your initial comments. Of course, we'll return to you. Let's go over to Lagos. You saw Dr. Adeshola Olalekun a while ago on the screen. She's joining us via Skype. Dr. Olalekun, I mean, you were a volunteer 6 years ago when we had the Ebola outbreak in Nigeria. And here we are a little over a month now into the coronavirus pandemic, at least in Nigeria. What, for you, are the significant differences between what played out in 2014 and what is unfolding before our eyes in 2020?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. Yeah, there is a big significant difference with Ebola and with the COVID-19. The difference is that Ebola is hemorrhagic. COVID-19 is respiratory illness, which can be easily transmitted, and it can get to more people, unlike Ebola. For someone to have Ebola, then you must have direct contact with an infected person. But this is quite different. 1 meter, if you are not 1 meter apart to someone that is already having COVID-19 and the person sneezes or cough, your probability of getting it is higher. So the rate of transmission of COVID-19
Oh, shame. We had a freeze there on Skype. I don't know. If that clears up, we'll return to her to give us some more detail. All right. So, Dr. Olalekun, please proceed with your explanation.
Thank you so much. Apart from the disease itself, also the preparedness, I must say at this point that Lagos State is trying, and Lagos State is always prepared. When Ebola started, it was different because there was nothing like that on ground. We weren't expecting it. So that was why immediately they called for volunteers and people came out and we started. But presently, since then, Lagos State have already mapped out their infection control, which is working perfectly well for them. And why the number and the cases is high in Lagos is expected because this is actually the bigger economic hub of the country, everybody coming through the Lagos airport. And the way the Lagos State government is responding, with God's help, I think we will get there. We should be able to contain it, just the way Ebola was contained.
Let's stay with you. In terms of containing the pandemic as we contained Ebola, that means some level of medication has to come in. So I'm going to ask you a professional question here. You're a researcher in the Department of Medical Laboratory Science, and of course you are a microbiology and a molecular biologist. So let me ask you this. In terms of medical therapy, that is required to stem down this pandemic. Compare that with what you did during Ebola era with respect to your professionals who are directly involved in fashioning out a kind of medical therapy that could really be efficacious enough to address this pandemic. Is there anything you are learning, about this pandemic that you could address professionally in terms of making available some form of medication to address it?
Okay, like I said earlier, that because of the Ebola outbreak, Lagos State already have a preparedness in place. They have their infectious disease hospital. But what is different from Ebola is that now we need to do more of laboratories testing. And as of Thursday, the centers all over the country were only 4. But on Friday, NCDC promised to have 2 more centers. This actually had to do with testing and testing. The reason is because the disease is symptomless. So if somebody is even harboring the virus that is causing it, the symptoms will not come out. So we need to have a lot of testing and testing and testing. So I think the laboratory capacity needs to be built up and more centers should come up. That will also help in containing it. And a lot of contact tracing is being done, and that I heard also on Friday that Lagos State called for more volunteers. I think that will help. What Lagos State did then was to invite professionals. We were trained then to collect samples. The samples were sent to the laboratory. So, and then presently the sample used is quite different from the sample in Ebola. This is non-invasive, which is even making it better. But more laboratories should be established so that the number of people that will be tested will be increased compared to what we have now.
Dr. Laleko, I want to take advantage of the Skype, which is still good at this moment. Tell us something, because I'm sure you also come across this in some of fairly alarming social media posts. People say, oh, they want to be tested, they don't know where to go to, or they go to the NCDC offices and nobody attends to them. But we do know from what we have heard elsewhere around the world that testing kits are not items that you just pick up from the shelf. They're a bit scarce now, considering the nature of the pandemic. If you are familiar with the testing for coronavirus, is it like the typical malaria test or the one they call the wider test normally used for typhoid, that you just walk in and get a test and walk away? If they say negative, you start clapping your hands?
Thank you so much for that question. This is quite different because presently the NCDC protocol that is adopted is real-time PCR, which will amplify the nucleic acid, which we all know that the RNA will be the representative, the genetic material that will be dictated for the virus to be confirmed. So unlike all other tests that you can use a serological test or simple method, this is quite different because you need a real-time PCR machine, and also because of the vulnerability and the high contagious nature of the virus, it has to be processed in a biosafety level 3 cabinet. So you cannot extract the RNA just like that on the normal laboratory bench. So if you are establishing a laboratory for COVID-19, there must be a BSL-3 laboratory cabinet where the sample will be processed, the RNA will be extracted. Then there must be a real-time PCR which will be used. And also we have capacity. That one I will not deceive you. We have so many of our colleagues that can use the machine. But the question now is, how many real-time PCR do we have in the country? But the government is trying to bring more and also to invite researchers that have in their various institutes. But we have other, it is it is not only the machine alone. We have other important things. If you must process, you need complete PPE. That's the personal protective equipment, which contain the glove, the mask, the hair jar, the overall, and also the boots, because you must protect yourself. It's only when you are aware you can help others. So your PPE must be there, the safety cabinet must be there, and also the quantitative method that is being used. You need the real-time PCR machine. So it is not just like we are hearing that there are rapid tests and all this. Most of all these tests, they have their do's and don'ts. They are not reliable. And even the World Health Organization and also with our NCDC, they have adopted the standard method, which is the real-time PCR. And that is what can confirm it for now.
Thank you indeed. I think, gentlemen, we're beginning to understand, other concepts of this coronavirus with respect to laboratory testing, which has made it so clear, that it's not just you walk into a lab and do a test and get out, relying on such results. As of yesterday in the U.S., there is this concept they have now. They have developed a test kit that can give you results in 15 minutes. Right, that is new because from what we've had all over the world, this virus, we're still learning. The world is still learning it. Some say it can mutate, some say it cannot mutate, and what have you. And when she was talking about staying away 1 meter away from the person carrying the virus, some people stayed even closer. Some people who have been confirmed positive, but they didn't get it. Right, so there are things to really learn about that. Let's go to Kano, where we have the deputy governor of that state, Nasru Yusuf Gauna. Sir, now we're talking about laboratory. We're also talking about PPE, which is the personal protective equipment, right? Which of course connotes a number of items, required by those in the front line to really fight coronavirus. Is there any plan within your committee or other committees, in Kano State operating vis-a-vis the fight against coronavirus, with the intention of, assisting in the provision of those PPEs and other medical supplies required to fight the virus?
Like I said, already a committee has been set up on fundraising, and this committee is working towards receiving all kind of donations to do with those that can be provided to the vulnerable in the community, and then the equipments and medical supplies. And one major partner in Kano is the Bayero University, Kano, which we are working together. And we are almost through setting up a testing center, which will be certified by the NCDC. And by the time we do that, I think is the only center in northern Nigeria, apart from Abuja, because as of now, we have to take samples to Abuja. And with this lockdown, we have to, because the airports has been closed and the borders has been closed between Kano, Kaduna, Abuja, it has to take a lot of time before it reach Abuja and then we receive. So what BUK are doing in terms of providing or working in partnership with the state to provide this testing center is really, really something that we are looking forward to. And very soon, I'm sure, I think yesterday we met, and from the report I heard is very soon, maybe before the end of the week, the testing center will be ready. So this is one of our major partners. Apart from that, companies have come forward in terms of sanitization of the state. There is a company that provided equipments that are for the fumigation and for the cleaning of the of various public places. And the governor, His Excellency, Dr. Abdullahi Umar Ganduje, was the one that even launched it. And even today, at the close of markets by 7 fumigation will be started. So companies like that are coming with their own support, and they are doing very well. Some are coming forward with the issues of medical supplies, and some are coming with foods. Yesterday I received a call from 2 companies that are coming to provide food items, and I have directed them to meet the fundraising committee, which are going to handle that aspect. I think so far we have done that. Then the other one is the issue of sensitization. The issue of these spiritual leaders is very, very important, because they are not to mislead their followers in terms of sensitizing them on the severity of this pandemic. And we are receiving a lot of a response. It may not be equipment, it may not be finance, but those the spiritual advice is also very, very important. And I can remember yesterday, after the inauguration of the committee, His Excellency, the governor, plead with the people of Kano State to go spiritually and fast. Everybody has faith. So we have to also, apart from this physical things that we are doing, we have to go spiritual and pray, because we have a lot of vulnerable people. We can look at how advanced other countries are and how they are suffering with it. And we have to take all measures that we can to make sure that we have contained this pandemic.
All right, Mr. Deputy Governor, I still want to stay with you. We do know, of course, that states have been responding on their own until last night, when the president, as it were, imposed a lockdown on the FCT, Lagos and Ogun states. If you were to take a cue from Katsina, which is next door to you, and Kaduna, which is also next door, we have seen that in Kaduna, for instance, there's been a lockdown, and the lockdown has been enforced. I'm just wondering why Kano, which is one of the most populous states in the Federation, still hasn't adopted the extreme social distancing mechanism, which is very important. We know that we are waiting some 5 test results. 15 have tested negative already, but must you have a positive result before you embark on social distancing by way of limited lockdown? However it may be, you have said that you are closing all the entry and exit points into the states, but if people are mingling the way they do, and anybody who's familiar with Kano would know this, marketplaces, places of worship, and so on and so forth, and as we say, God forbid, one person has it, how are you going to be in a position to even manage that, trace, and then they utilize the facilities that the donors are now making available to the state?
Like you said, Kano is the most populous, and it's also, we should consider the aspect of the cosmopolitan nature of Kano too, and then we have to consider a lot of factors before we now close down. We are going towards that. Whatever measure we have to take it gradually. And now we have done that, and people have seen what is happening in other states. And like I said, we are not praying for it. Even when the other results come as negative, we are looking at the increasing incidences in the country. And then we'll now sit down with these clerics that is to do with both the faiths, and then the commercial stakeholders, that is owners or stakeholders in the markets and manufacturing units. We'll sit down with them, and then we'll now come up with a measure, because we have to be very careful in doing that. Like you said, we have seen it in some other states. There were protests when they said that, but when you now come together, sit down and make sure that you have sensitized people enough, you will be able to lock down completely. And now that the federal government has already taken the cue, we are meeting, and by the time we meet again with the committee and then the state government, we are coming with more measures that we are going to take, and locking down is not out of the question.
It's good to hear that it's not out of the question because, yes, you have said it clearly that you are taking your decisions gradually, which is very important as well. But looking at Kano, that question came from Kingsley because of the nature of Kano, the population, and the natural way people live in Kano. And that if you allow people to continue living the normal way, even when you have not tested positive in Kano, it's going to be risky in terms of asking them now to adjust all of a sudden, you know, and it will be a little bit difficult. You know, Kingsley, when this started, you know, globally, you know, countries like Italy delay, you know, saying that, look, you know, until it gets to a point, we will react. Today, he's suffering it, over 10,000 dead already in such a country. And of course, let me be mindful of the fact that Italy is one of the best equipped European countries when it comes to medical facility. That has been emphasized on several occasions. They have one of the best, and if they can be overwhelmed, then of course something is wrong somewhere. Right, I think Jide Ojo wants to respond to some of the things that the Deputy Governor has told us. Jide, please come in here.
Well, for me, I think His Excellency the Deputy Governor needs to understand that we are already in a state of emergency. And prevention is cheaper and better than cure. As things stand, before Kaduna even had the first positive case, the governor had already ordered a curfew. And that is being proactive. Even though it was days after he had taken that very harsh measure that he tested positive. But that was being proactive. And I think Kano should follow suit without any further delay. I do understand the mindset of the government of Kano State. They don't have a test center. If you lock down without provisioning of food, maybe that could lead to chaos. But things have to happen so rapidly now. Kano happens to, until last week, be receiving international flights. Kano, Port Harcourt, Lagos, Abuja were 4 or 5, including Imo, were the airports receiving international flights. And we do know that this virus was imported by those who have traveled abroad. So, God forbid, you never can tell whether 1 or 2 people already has it in Kano. Because this issue does not have symptoms in the first few days of having contracted it. In fact, we had the chief of staff to the president yesterday that said, even though he's been confirmed positive, he's still not showing any sign of any sickness. That he's still fit, he's still working, but laboratory tests have proved that he has it. And he's taking precautions. So, the fact that somebody hasn't tested negative in any particular stage is not indicative of the fact that no such case exists. And Kano are familiar with that environment. The population is very huge. And we can only pray that no one has it as of now. It's necessary for that state to embark without further delay on at least considerable lockdown of many of the crowded environments. Whether you want to start with market and worship centers, you can do that in phases, but at least let people understand the importance of social distancing, because that's where it should start now. And yes, it's a very positive thing that they are going spiritual. We all need to go spiritual. I mean, everyone, this is a Lenten period anyway, so people are already spiritually minded. But while we pray, we also must watch, we also must take steps for our personal protection.
All right, Jide, thank you very much. The FCT, of course, FCT had taken its own gradual steps towards a lockdown before the full lockdown that was announced by the president last night. Dr. Mohammed Kawo, of course, we're all here in the FCT and we know the various measures that the FCT administration has taken. And we do hope that the Kano state government will learn from all of this. I mean, nobody is praying for any incident in Kano, but if you consider the tens of millions of people who are in that state and the contagion that will most likely arise, then this is the time to begin. Of course, Deputy Governor will come to you subsequently. But let's bring in again the acting head secretary for the FCT. You talked about a number of committees, sensitization, mobilization, and so on and so forth. I don't know how effective in terms of evaluation, internal evaluation, these committees have been. Let me focus on, say, sensitization. On Good Morning Nigeria, we've said it up to last week that, look, you still go to some locations where you have people gathering in large numbers, say near the headquarters of the Federal Ministry of Works, where you have these daily paid laborers, who get to be hired, for construction works and so on and so forth. Every morning, up until this morning, they were still there in their large numbers. I doubt if anybody has gone there to speak to them, to say, look, gentlemen, you guys have to disperse. I don't know where they sleep. I don't know how they relieve themselves and so on and so forth. You go to the markets in the FCT, and it's still virtually the same bedlam and filth that you find in and around the markets in Abuja city itself. I'm not talking about the fringes. So what is happening?
Yeah, thank you very much. The presidential lockdown is helping us. As you said, we've been having some issues. But if you look at the news, we have a task force that has been going around churches, mosques, and they have locked down and chased some churches that came to worship, and they have gone to markets and other places and ensured that implementation was done. But with this presidential lockdown, all those things will be things of the past. Since the regime has been going on, the minister has met with religious leaders, both the Khan and the mosques, the Muslim leaders, 2 or 3 times, and he has sensitized them. And even before the lockdown, those people have given cooperation substantially. Churches have written, mosques have written that they have locked down, that they have closed. About 4, 5, 6 days ago, national mosques and most of the big mosques have written formally and have circulated that they've locked down. So sensitization has been going down. And you must get the buy-in, the understanding of the society, the communities. You don't want a situation where you start taking guns and start beating people. But as I said, the presidential directive has helped FCT. Let me go back to the number of facilities we had. I just enumerated some that are already on ground. Now, we've been working with Federal Ministry of Health, as I told you. It's not an issue. It's not an FCT issue. It's a Nigerian issue. Agura Hotel, Women Development Center, this day Dome, and National Stadium has all been inspected by a joint team of FCT and Federal Ministry of Health. And all these centers are on plan to be converted to makeshift holding base and treatment centers. And we have started fumigation. If you have also been watching the news, FCT Minister of State has been leading fumigation teams to markets. Almost all the markets in the city have already been fumigated. All the houses of people that have been tested positive have all been fumigated. There's a case of one young lady that came from UK that tested positive. She was in a hotel before she was confirmed positive. That hotel has been fumigated and decontaminated. So all these things have been going on. Now, because of issue of people calling and not getting attention for testing, and it's becoming a problem to FCT, we have established a testing center at the Exhibition Center directly opposite Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, beside the International Conference Center, where people that call that want to test, they are given appointment. So we have teams in that center that stay. There are people that are taking the history of the patient. There is epi team that will take the epidemiological aspect of this something, and is passed to the team that is kitted that will be taking the samples. So we have two systems. The already existing system of about 15 teams that have been going around the city to take samples at people's houses. And then there's a center that's been opened yesterday that people that call and they want to be tested are given appointment, like you are given appointment in a hospital. Come to social center. We send you a text that you're coming by 10:05. At the gate, if you show your text message, you are allowed in. And then your sample is taken and you go. All this to reduce the stress and the tension. A lot of people are apprehensive. People just cough and they call us that. Yesterday, my director of public health was called by police at Galadima roundabout that somebody collapsed because of Ebola. She should come and evacuate. She said, how do you know it's Ebola? He said the patient was coronavirus. The patient was coughing and collapsed. So she had to call the hospitals and they evacuate. Eventually that patient is not corona. So everybody that sneezes, everybody that coughs, so there is so much pressure. So we have to think outside the box.
Kirian and Dr. Kao, just a minute. Last week we asked Professor Abdul Salam Nasir this question. So look, there appears to be no other ailment again apart from corona. Are you with me? I mean, people have allergies, and allergies can provoke all kinds of things, either sneezing or coughing. If you inhale dust, for instance, it can precipitate that. But these days, even when you want to, even if you don't,
you don't want to cough in public. Because it has to be made clear to everybody. Yes. Other sicknesses are still around. We still have malaria. We still have cough. We still have a normal nose running when you have normal flu. Lassa fever is still there, and so on and so forth.
Malaria is also there.
So,
it hasn't gone.
Yeah. So we're happy to see one pastor arrested yesterday. Because he went against what that was a good one. Now let's return to Lagos and talk to a real professional among us here this morning. Let's come back to you, madam. The strain of COVID-19 is no longer strange to some professionals like you who are either micro or molecular biologists. Now, I am talking about medication this time around, locally made one. Because in any situation where you have a global pandemic where nobody has the answer, or what comes to mind is that there's some scientists should be sitting somewhere and determining how, to build something up locally to see what we can do to attack it. Now, to the best of your knowledge, there are some of you professionals in Nigeria who are gathering or who are, even if online, looking inwards and seeing how we can develop our own medical approach to this pandemic. Because, of course, if we have it, it will be to the benefit of the entire world.
Yes, thank you so much. Every infectious disease must have a treatment. There must be a solution. And like you said, a lot is being done globally outside Nigeria to find solution to this problem. And Nigerian researchers are not also relenting. Like we have instances of some researchers that we heard even the concussion they are making has been sent out for some validation. People are doing their best to see how there can be intervention or mitigation to stop this problem. But the results might not be as quick as you can have it in the Western world. You have other ways you can also give intervention, that you can also do research to give information that can help. We have also some in silico studies where you can also gather data that other people have generated and you can use it to bring an information that can help in therapy. Researchers are working, but how fast, how quick, how effective, we don't know yet until the result is out, until we have the outcome.
Dr. Olalekan, I would like to still have you on and take this question. I mean, Lagos, before the presidential announcement last night, was considering whether to go on a total lockdown so that, well, total dusk to dawn lockdown so that they could fumigate public spaces and bus stops and so on and so forth. But the state government decided against that. So my question actually has to do with the effectiveness of fumigation. I'm sure you must have seen a number of videos circulating in social media of how various governments and places are fumigating their locations. I was just wondering, the president in his address last night gave a leeway for the movement of certain kinds of goods. For instance, trucks conveying food and so on and so forth. What would be your advice in terms of efficacy of those trucks that are traversing from, say, north to south or south to north? I mean, you have a number of junction states, but the most popular would be Kogi, for instance. Does Kogi have the facility to decontaminate any of these trucks as they are passing by? You have trailer parks. Otherwise, as we understand, the virus can stick on surfaces for hours or days, and then you bring food and then come also with the virus. What would you suggest?
I think this particular intervention cannot only be done by the Lagos state government. It has to be interstate. So if anything is coming from neighboring states, like food that is important to Lagos, the contamination of the people bringing it, the trunk that they have used, everything is supposed to have been done in the border of those states, even coming into Lagos. And as they are entering Lagos, Lagos actually have a very effective infection prevention control. I must say the truth. But they need collaboration from other states so that because research has shown that this coronavirus can stay on metals, on surfaces for up to 8 hours. These are confirmed research, published in high reputable journals. So because of that, if someone sneezes, and you are traveling for like 7 hours, you can distribute the items and someone else is getting it. And that is the alarming mode of transmission that is in the coronavirus that is quite different from what in Ebola. So I think Lagos State, we need other states that are bringing things in to also collaborate with them by making sure that all those things are disinfected, there's appropriate infection control strategy before bringing in to Lagos. And the moment they get to Lagos, in fact, if you go to any market in Lagos, you will be amazed because everybody is at alert. You see people with their soap and water everywhere. So even before distributing in our markets, there should also be an intervention, a control strategy to mitigate the infection. I think it is collaboration. Lagos State cannot do it alone.
All right. Thank you, Madam, for your contribution this morning, which, of course, came from the professional angle. We'd like to appreciate your contributions, and, of course, we hope to have you next time on the program. And that's talking about Dr. Desola Olalekan, who is a lecturer and researcher at the Department of Medical Laboratory Science, College of Medicine, University of Lagos. But actually, Kingsley, the question you raised concerning fumigation is vital, really. But then most countries that have fumigated seem not to have any result from that. You know, the escalation of the pandemic was not actually stopped by any form of fumigation. I don't know. I'm not saying it's not.
You have the scientific data.
What data? Italy did it. What's happening there today? China did it at the incipient of the pandemic. They did it. It never worked.
But I think it is helpful. I mean, you have seen them in terms of border control. trucks and of other vehicles are being fumigated, considering the mode of transmission. If the virus can stay on metal surfaces for several hours, then why don't you fumigate those trucks? Because you and I can't see this virus. It might be on any surface and then suddenly it escapes into the population.
Maybe we have to also fumigate the food items being conveyed. Because that is where the matter comes. That's where the matter comes in. Because all of that are being touched by persons who loaded it and all of that. So let's look at what Nigerians are saying via tweets. Emmanuel Bassi says no case has so far been recorded or reported yet in Cross River State. However, there's partial lockdown as a preventive measure.
Akeju Olagbaju, I like to look at the trend with respect to location of international and local airports. And it's very interesting that most states that are not serviced by airports are relatively safe for now. That is not to say that they are completely safe. They must be more alert. Ogun State doesn't have an airport.
Enugu has not operated airport in the past 5 months. So, and we have it there. All right. Law Alpha C, here in Abia State, no confirmed case, and we are not hoping for any, but the people should comply with all the instructions to that effect. Although the situation is getting out of hand, but different levels of government and private Nigerians need to rise to the occasion.
Festus Akimboyewa says the broadcast by the president was comprehensive and it sends a clear message to states to put in place adequate measures to curb the spread. States must ensure that the virus doesn't spread to our rural areas.
Ibrahim Modu Aji, it's quite commendable for many state governors for closing their state borders and imposing curfew, which is a first step to prevent COVID-19 from spreading. However, NCDC should fasten the establishment of laboratory medical test centers, especially in the north.
All right, Kira, I mean, we just read this again now. States, you know, it's a very tricky expression. Ordinarily, states don't have borders. It is a country that has borders. You know, states have boundaries. But, of course, in the manner of speaking, we keep saying, you know, borders, X, Y, Z.
They mean the same thing. Nigeria, trust Nigerians.
It's a country. Nigeria has borders with 4 countries, and the other states have boundaries and points of entry and exit. Sani Michael Omakoji, Omagbola Humbabs, and then Habila Kwara Zakshi, it says that the NCDC, if NCDC doesn't extend a staff with testing kits to other states for mass testing, we may get overwhelmed by the virus, considering the fact that there is a lot of interstate travel.
Okay, I think we have to really end it here. We'll have Habila from Kwara Zashi, we have Omobola Humbabs, Habiba Kwara again. We can't take you because time is on our side. There's one thing we didn't talk about. Are banks going to be functional during this lockdown? It's a very big question.
Well, I think what the president, what some banks have decided to do was to go on initial partial closure. At least one of my banks actually sent notice that for the next 7 days they are not going to be operational. But I think cashless means of transaction will still be on for people to do online transaction. But we need to be very wary because of security concerns that the Inspector General of Police has come out to address.
Okay, all right, Jido Joe, thanks a lot. Public affairs analyst and regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria. We appreciate you being with us this morning. Thanks. Dr. Mohammed Kawo, Acting Secretary, FCT Health and Human Services Secretariat. We thank you for being on Good Morning Nigeria. From Kano, we're joined by His Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Kano State, Nasri Yusuf Gawuda. Thank you very much for being on Good Morning Nigeria today. And in Lagos, we had Dr. Adeshola Olaleko. So that does it for us today on Good Morning Nigeria. I would like to thank you for being with us. We are back tomorrow. Despite the lockdown, we are back tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Of course, we are excluded because we are broadcasters.
Oh, yeah.
Kirian. My name is Kingsley Osadolo. Do have a nice day. And, of course, stay safe.
And Kirian Umayo telling you to stay safe.